Good afternoon. I'll give a e-governance perspective of 2020. I call it eBharat 2020. So since morning we have been talking about perspectives, vertical perspectives, horizontal perspectives. But e-governance is the effective application of ICT in governance process. So the various stakeholders in the governance process are citizens, businesses, employees, and internal departments of the government. So we have G2C, C2G, G2B, B2G, G2E, G2G, and government within is local government, state government, central government. So we'll have the concept of e-citizen, where the citizen will be able to interact with the government 24/7, 365 days. And businesses will access all government services with no complexities, no delays for faster economic development. The employees will have better intercommunication and understanding, increased productivity. And the government within its own processes will have better productivity, efficiency, and good relations with other government departments. So the idea is to deliver citizen-centric e-governance in a format and place convenient to the citizens, and transparency. What is called smart governance is simple, moral, accountable, responsive, and transparent. So instead of the citizen just going to the government, the citizen will go to the web, and the government is available virtually to the citizen round the clock. So citizen need not go to any government office. That is the vision. Coming to the brass tacks, National Informatics Center has been the harbinger of e-governance in the country since 70s. And we assist 75 central government ministries. And I'm the senior most DDG. I'm likely to get the Director General charge as well. And the NICNet has about 70,000 end users. And the National Knowledge Network, which was referred in the morning also, is also set up by NIC, which connects about 10,000 institutions. Ultimately, now about 1,500 institutions are already connected. And the NIC has huge national data centers, which are there in Delhi, Hyderabad, Pune, and Bhubaneswar, and also have smaller data centers in the states. And we host about 10,000 websites, and we have the largest video conferencing network in the country, operating all the meetings and interviews of the government within the video conferencing domain. And we have one of the largest email services for about 3 to 4 million emails per day being turned out. And we have the certifying authority, NICCA, to deliver digital certificates to all the government officers. And we also have an SMS gateway. So NIC has been supporting e-governance in a big way with the mission mode projects in red color or pink color, like e-procurement, e-courts, e-agriculture, e-district, PDS, public distribution system. These are all operational for quite a few years successfully. E-Panchayat is something we started off when I was in AP, and then it's now at the national level being operationalized. And equally important projects which are not known as mission mode projects but are even more important are National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, and then Mother and Child Tracking System, Central Plan Scheme Monitoring System, e-Hospital, and so on. These are just some of the examples of NIC's indulgence and involvement and critical dependence of e-governance on NIC. So the Electronic Services Delivery Bill makes it compulsory for all the state and central government services to be delivered electronically based on the Citizen Charter. And in the morning there was a reference to National Optic Fiber Network, which refers to the 100 Mbps being provided at the panchayats of the entire country, and the NKN going up to the district level, and NOFN from block to panchayat. Between the district and block, bridge is yet to be built. And you all know about the Aadhaar, and the Open Data Platform is the policy of Government of India to make all the government data open for access to the public. And we have the m-governance framework and dial.gov. Now the National Information Infrastructure 2.0, of which I am a committee member, is aiming at integrating all the large networks of the government, the NICNet, the NKN, and the NOFN together, without which we don't go too far, because if they remain in islands and bits and pieces, it is only that we suffer. So it is essential that we integrate. Like for example, The NICNET and NKN are already getting integrated up to the district level. And the NOFN starts at the block and goes to the village level or village panchayat. But between the district and block, there is a gap. So it is high time we integrate all the three networks. And this is a networking component of the National Information Infrastructure 2.0. And the computing infrastructure is the data centers. In addition to the existing national data centers, we are also planning to set up huge new national data centers in other cities, outskirts of the cities like Delhi, Bangalore, Calcutta, with 1 lakh square feet and so on. So this is about NIC's involvement. Now let us talk about DIT's NEGP, which was the first holistic view of e-governance initiative integrating NICs and non-NIC initiatives together into a collective vision. In 2006, around 5,000–6,000 crores were allocated for this. And it has various components, the mission mode projects, and it has the state data centers, state wide area networks, and the common service centers, which are referred in the morning. The state data centers are owned by the state governments, funded by the DIT, and most of the states have already operationalized with the assistance of NIC, in addition to NIC's own data centers. And the state wide area network is a network which was connected with 2 Mbps long back, but now it's going to be integrated with NKN and NICNET to become 1 Gbps speed. And the mission mode projects are of the central level and the state level. The central are the banking, income tax, insurance, MCA 21. Most of them are not in NIC domain. Some of them are, but in state mission mode projects, almost all with NIC domain. So we operate these mission mode projects throughout the country with our divisions and groups in the respective ministries. And we have the integrated or concurrent MMPs between the state and center. E-procurement has been a great success, and so also e-office in a big way. Now, till now, it appeared as if things were very rosy. But if you look at the e-government survey 2012 by United Nations, we failed to see any rosiness. It's all bad. We are 124th in the world, whereas Singapore and Korea is #1 in the world. And what's worse, we are going down every year in the ranking. Of course, a lot of people say they were biased and their yardsticks were not correct and so on. But then that's true for all countries. So if you look at the comparative statement of China, India, you find, India is below average, which was about 40%. So these are three parameters on which the ranking was done. First was infrastructure development. Now, as you all know, the infrastructure in the country is very poor, though we talked a lot in the morning. If you go down to the village, there's no power, let alone any network. And no 3G, 2G is operational, only simple mobile phones are being used. No smartphones too much in the villages. And India lives in the villages, as Gandhiji said, and it's called Bharat. 80% or 74% of the country lives in the villages where there's no infrastructure, comparable to China or South Korea or any other, even Malaysia, not to speak of the Western countries. So the solution is we have to go for smart village instead of smart city alone. Cities, we had been doing a lot of things. So villages is where India lives, and smart village, or Gram Vikas we call it, is one which has a broadband network, NOFN integration with NKN, covering all the institutions in the village, school, college, library, post office, hostel, and so on. And this is just the institutional part, but actual broadband network shall connect to the homes in the villages. That's too far a dream away. So we will talk at least about the institutions in the village. And we have done pilots, DIT, NIC have done pilots of Gram Vikas Smart Village. In the NOFN, 3 pilots, one in Andhra, one in Rajasthan, and one in Tripura. The second parameter the United Nations used was human capital development. In India, we don't even have normal literacy, let alone e-literacy in the villages. And the third thing that the parameter we used for ranking was the e-government service delivery, where we fare very badly, because we have a fragmented, as United Nations report says, India is having a fragmented and formative stage of e-governance delivery. So it also says that if we can involve e-governance IT in a big way into the key economic activities like agriculture, veterinary, medicine, education, banking, and Gram Bazaar, that is rural e-commerce. Yesterday that M-Pesa is being offered by Vodafone, and similarly Airtel is offering banking, and we have tried to deliver the banking correspondent model in the NOF and pilots. And the Gram Bazaar is a concept I would like to draw your attention to. Every item you buy in the market today, it costs 10 times more than what actually it costs in the village where it's produced. Even it's rice or wheat or vegetable or fruits or any, even saris or carpets. Or I'll give you an example. Pochampalli silk sari, which costs about 2,000 rupees in Pochampalli, I've seen with my own eyes costing 55,000 rupees in New Jersey market, and about 10,000 rupees in Delhi and 7,000 and so on. So who is getting the money? Because the weaver who actually committed suicides. Farmers and weavers are continuously committing suicides, and the money is made by the middlemen. When the mobile technology devices are there, why the middlemen are required? Directly between the consumers and producers, we can have a bridge through the mobile technology. So the idea of Gram Bazaar, there is a website where all the consumers will place orders, and then there is in the same website, the producers will register their products, and the software will match in terms of the price and ease of access, and the orders will be placed, and courier will be used to deliver. This model is already used in China, as called Zhongzhong. So why can't we do it in India? This will attack both the major problems of the country, poverty on one side, leading to suicides, and the other problem we have in India is inflation. Because inflation is also artificially created by the middlemen. It is not actual cost of the good or service. So both problems can be tackled with one shot with Gram Bazaar. And similarly, we have the rural technologies concept. In fact, in the villages, every village has a particular product. Like one village produces a lot of mangoes, another village produces a lot of lime, another village produces a lot of wheat or rice, and they have surplus and they just throw it and dump it and waste it. So why can't we have rural technologies where we'll be able to develop into shelf-storable products and then export? And we have a general information service, and the traditional knowledge capture and dissemination. And social networking is not to be restricted to the urban city dwellers. It should be in local languages for the villagers on a speech basis, because nobody will have time to go on keying in on the mobile phone. It's very painful. So on a speech-based social networking is what will click. And tendering, bidding, and marketing local products. I've already told about Gram Bazaar with the help of self-help groups and skilled persons. And registration and authentication of farmers, women, widows, unemployed, poor, disabled. Reaching the unreached. The United Nations report also talks about reaching the unreached, the underprivileged sections of the society, how we can reach them through the M2M. And all transactions and interactions required in the local language, as mentioned, and based on the interactive video conference. And comprehensive single window government services are still elusive in India. We have fragmented islands of government services. We have 15 Kisan portals, and every department offers its own websites. There is no integration of state level also, let alone central level or the national level. Whereas in other countries, they have a whole country as a single window. If you go to Singapore or Korea or USA or UK, all citizen services are available through a single window. Only in India, we have multifarious facets. Nobody is interested in integrating. So integration within NIC, within DIT, between NIC and DIT, and within a state government, within a central government, across the departments, this is what is the call for the day as per the United Nations report. And the Chief Information Officer is supposed to achieve this integration. And no surprisingly, in India, we don't even have a Chief Information Officer. But we have an Indian as a Chief Information Officer in USA, and Vivek Kundra, and I think recently he has left. So the major shifts required are that from the present supply-driven, what the people want is decided by the government officers and NIC officers and not the people themselves. So instead of supply-driven, it should be demand-driven service delivery. And instead of the fragmented and distributed and disintegrated information system, it should be single window approach. Instead of the present desktop kiosk-based, it should be multi-channel service delivery with social networks, mobile devices, and social networking linkage to the local languages and all websites, and bridging the digital divide, that is overcoming the English barrier, going into the local language barrier, and overcoming the class barrier to include all sections of society, the underprivileged, the poor and the poorest and unreached. So what was wrong till now with NEGP? NEGP, first, it has missed out on the natural law of citizen life cycle. All countries follow the citizen life cycle approach for e-governance, not in India. The most important is point number 2, legacy government processes continue. Why is it that India is 124th while Malaysia, Singapore, Canada, Australia, which are all Commonwealth countries, which are all under the British rule, were much above in the single digit rank in the world? One single reason is point number 2 there. Legacy government processes of the British colonial rule continue in the government process right from the village level up to the central government level. No reforms have been done. I have met the CIO of the British government and asked him, do you have any old British procedures and rules and regulations? He said, nothing. We have modified everything. We are modern, reformed completely. So did Singapore, so did Malaysia, so did Australia. All were Commonwealth countries under the British. India is the only country, sir, believe me, which honestly and loyally maintains the colonial British procedures and processes till today. So we need to reform. There is no question about it. And the MMPs have no interoperability. Like you can go and buy Taj Mahal. Those of you want to go and buy Taj Mahal, go to Agra and say that I own Taj Mahal and I can sell it to you. And it will be registered. This was shown in a movie also, in Bunty and Bubbly. So, because there is no integration with land records and no information exchange between various levels of the government, state, central, federal, village level. And most important is the enterprise architecture. All this is happening because there is no single view of enterprise architecture for the entire country. And global best practices not identified and replicated, local best practices not identified, no CIO structure, no e-governance act. The Ohio state has introduced e-governance act. I'll talk about it. What is it? Till now I was cursing darkness, but let me lit a lamp, as Confucius said, with a vision of eBharat 2020, of which 12 steps. The first step is perform the real needs analysis, what the people really want. I mean, what people want cannot be decided by us in conferences like this or in offices of DOT or DIT or NIC. It has to be from the field. You have to make a survey, what people really want. One lady in IIT Delhi, did PhD and went and surveyed in the villages. The people, they asked, do you get any benefit out of this kiosk? So one common man standing there with a big fat leg, filaria, he said, can I cure this filaria inside this kiosk? Because people are not interested in what we think in conferences or in meetings in our offices. They are interested in health, education, employment, commerce. So first we have to identify what are the real needs. Similarly, what are the real needs of the businesses, real needs of the employees. Then you come out with a variety of M applications. The first and foremost is M identity authentication. If you integrate the biometric ID onto the mobile device should carry biometric ID authentication along with digital signature, along with unique ID, so Aadhaar number, all three together. Then you will be able to authenticate an individual. Once you are able to authenticate an individual, you can do wonders. You can perform electronic voting. You don't need millions of billions of rupees of expenditure on voting. You can scrap all these elections and have around because you already authenticated the individual. You can do financial transactions. You can deliver health. You can deliver education if you have biometric devices and also vital parameters, measurement devices on the mobile device. You can also do the telehealth delivery on the mobile. And of course, agriculture we talked, Gram Bazaar we talked. So that is the kind of application development will be required in the country in the next few years. And to achieve that, we have to first scrap and reform the old obsolete rules and regulations which stop this kind of revolutionary introduction of mobile devices by proper reform reengineering based on a methodology which is Lean Six Sigma. Lean is a Japanese technique, as you know, which ensures shortest path. In fact, in India, we have the longest path of doing things in the government. So in Japanese, lean technique is the shortest path to achieve a task, to avoid and eliminate the non-value steps and have only absolutely essential value steps. Six Sigma, as you all know, ensures 99.9966% perfection. So combination of Lean Six Sigma is the ultimate Brahmastra for most efficient service delivery. The Hyderabad airport followed Lean Six Sigma and got world first best airport award 3 times. So why not a government office? So for this, to introduce the values of justice, equality, transparency, accountability, which we all together call dharma, into this software, into the e-governance, we need to reform our processes, process re-engineering with an advisory group who will decide what is to be done, which will be represented with judiciary, academia, industry, and the government. And this electronic service delivery bill can be enhanced for making it process reform re-engineering absolutely compulsory. As of now, it's not compulsory. You continue with old process. In fact, let me share with you, the land records was designed by our friend, Mr. Todar Mal, who has not attended today's conference because he was 400 years ago alive. So that's continuing till today, and it has been automated by NIC and perpetuated. So this is the paradox and tragedy of the situation. So if it's not enough if you just identify what should be done, but you should actually do it. Once you do the reform re-engineering, you get a brand new government. All your old process will be dumped into Ganga or Yamuna, wherever. When you get a new process-based new government, brand new government, and for that you need to define the new process and new services based on the life cycle of the citizens. And then it is not enough if you do that exercise for the government, but you have to do for the judiciary also. The other day when I went to Vizag, the Vizag jail superintendent came and met me. I asked him, who are there in your jail? He said, I have ordinary petty criminals who cut packets and so on. I asked him, where are the real criminals who murder and do all other things? He said, no sir, they all joined politics. So then I asked him, how is it possible? They said, no sir, their cases are pending in the court. So I asked Santosh Hegde, how many years is the pendency? He said 30 years. So till 30 years, cases will not be resolved. And in the meanwhile, anything can be done by anybody. So this is the pitiable situation of the judicial processes which are highly inefficient. There's an E-committee trying to reform. But judicial process reform should be synchronized with the government process reform based on the similar techniques of Lean and Six Sigma. And then, of course, the election process reform, which is the root cause of all corruption. If no money is to be spent in elections, no money is to be recovered during power, and no money is to be spent on all these scandals and scams. So if you can make online elections on mobile devices by authentication of the individual, then it is possible to do election process reform and automatically legislative process reform. And once you do all this, you get new processes, and you have the service-oriented approach to be used for identifying the new services for the citizens based on the life cycle of birth to death. And for these services, you have to have the web services repositories based on the service-oriented architecture for interoperability between state, central, and district levels. And once you have this, you can implement the cloud architecture on the SaaS model, on the IaaS and PaaS, and based on the enterprise architecture on SaaS. That you have a single window e-governance, that is e-Sarkar, single window e-judiciary, e-Nyaya, and single window Vidhan, and e-Nirvachan. And if you integrate all the 5, you get e-Bharat 2020. Is it a real dream or is it doable? I want the answer from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prabhu. Thank you very much for the insight. I would also like to invite Professor Jagan Shah for the panel for his insights. He is He's basically director in National Institute of Urban Affairs. So I think he would have a lot to say about the panel discussion. So basically the format of the panel discussion is basically we'll introduce ourselves probably in a line or two, and then we talk about the challenges and the solutions that we look at. And may I start with Mr. Prabhu?
Yeah, I'm the Senior Most Deputy Director General of NIC. I'm also likely to get Director General charge. I've already spoken the vision of e-Bharat 2020, and I've spoken about the e-governance limitations as of today and what should be done today and tomorrow to reach the vision of e-Bharat 2020.
Good morning. My name is Derek Jose. I represent Flutura, which is a pure play startup at the intersect of m2m and data sciences.
So I'm Dr. Prabhat Ranjan. Right now I'm Executive Director of TIFAC, which is Technology Information Forecasting Assessment Council. It's a technology think tank. Before that, I was Professor of Information and Communication Technology for 11 years.
I'm Jagan Shah. I'm an architect by training. I am Director of the National Institute of Urban Affairs, which is a think tank for the Ministry of Urban Development.
And myself, Narendra Kumar Saini. I'm CEO at Sukra Systems, and we basically work on the solution design for the M2M solution design and offering. So maybe we start with with some of the challenges in the industry that we see and that we have actually discussed over in the first session and the keynote speakers which have brought out. So one of the major challenges that I could see is the infrastructure. So that's where the communication infrastructure and the MVNOs may play a role, and I would like my fellow panelists to put few words on that. Then the compliance, then the fractured market that we have and how to address this challenge. And especially when we talked about the smart cities and probably the urban areas, the development in that areas. And so another thing that we look at is the solution, especially so ecosystem of m2m services in India. So these are the major challenges that probably I look forward to that our panel will discuss. So I'll start from the right.
Yeah, as I was saying, the infrastructure is a very serious problem across the country. It is definitely okay in the cities, so to say, but in the villages, it's a very serious problem. I have been to many villages. We have implemented projects like e-Panchayat, NOFN pilots. In NOFN pilots implementation, about 10 crores was spent on each pilot, in 3 pilots each, and about 10 villages were covered. And in each village, huge amount of investment was made in terms of the computing infrastructure and the network infrastructure by C-dot devices. And the basic problem was the power. And there was no power. I mean, like many villages have only 2 hours power supply during the day. And in the night only they get the power. And obviously we cannot deliver any services in the night. So a real solution in terms of the solar energy, power backup, reliable, whatever solutions were tried out were not reliable, were not adequate. We're looking for a reliable solution. Of course, I've seen new developments which have come up. And it's a large scale problem. And also the bandwidth. You know, most of the operators, telecom operators, don't operate in the villages. So the idea of NOFN was to give the bandwidth to the operators so that they'll start operating in those village areas. But then there are a lot of problems in NOFN itself. It has not taken off really the way, at the speed at which it has been proposed to have been by the big people like Sam Petroda and so on. Very slow. There are many issues of tendering and digging and so on and so forth. But the major problem is the linkage between the national level to the village level. NOFN is not a network as such because it is just connecting the block to the village, not above the block. And they're not bothered. So there has to be an independent solution between district and block. So the NKN was going up to the district level. So with 1 Gbps, and NOFN is 100 Mbps in the village. So if we can build the district to block link in a big way, then possibly we'll have a national network from end to end. That is, within NOFN, of course, we are able to reach the village level institutions, but the next goal will be to reach the individual houses in the village, which is a much bigger call to take. But let us first limit ourselves in institutions. And NOFN pilots have been reasonably successful, but then as we know, pilots cannot be representative. There are many serious issues in the country on these matters.
My perspectives are from the point of sense making out of this machine data. I'll talk from experience. So there are 3 important themes we are seeing experientially. The first important theme is intersect of use case and business case. So there are a lot of, since all these devices emit a lot of data, tons of data is historically collected, how do you make sense out of it? So a lot of use cases, we are able to curate a lot of use cases, but one of the challenges we see is inability to link the scenario to a business case. So what is the amount of money being saved or how much additional revenue are getting generated? Unless until you are able to make the link between the use case and the business case, we find it challenging to take something forward. I'll give you a very specific example. So we had the opportunity to work on one of the state smart grid projects. Tons of energy habits data streaming in. And the team created at least 15 varieties of data products, and out of which they selected only 2, primarily because one helped them understand outages much better so that they'll be able to bring down the frequency and duration outage, which has huge economic impact. The second important data product they were able to take was on basically reducing last mile revenue leakage. So there's a lot of commercial losses because a lot of pilferage in the grid itself. So the data product which helped them detect those patterns and put some proactive interventions, that was got done. So the intersect between business case and use case is very, very crucial trend we are seeing. The second trend we are seeing is, so if you look at the consumer world, where there's a lot of consumer related data which was generated in the retail, CPG, there is a whole new industry which was formed to basically monetize the data. So data syndicators started getting formed. We are also seeing a similar trend. We are at least working with 1 or 2 organizations which are trying to be the Nielsen or the IRI of the machine data world, where they will essentially take machine data and syndicate it for a price. So that's a new emergent business model we are seeing. The second business model we are seeing is many of the device manufacturers, whether you take the GEs of the world, the ABBs of the world, the Schneider Electrics of the world, are trying to morph themselves into a software company because they see the next level of value adds coming in from remote monitoring services or diagnostic services. And so they're trying to create new revenue streams purely from data. So that's the second trend we are seeing, new emergent business models. The third trend is something which we experienced. So being a small company out of Bangalore, we were constantly had challenges saying, so for example, I'll tell you, we went to an oil company, both in Houston and its office in Malaysia. And the question they asked us was, what is it that you'll be, they said, we are not price sensitive at all. So unless until you are able to add value, don't come up with a data product. So we did a workshop for them, and what we figured out was there's a lot of value an Indian company was able to add to them, which none of the national oil valves or the Halliburtons or the current solution providers were not able to. So I honestly feel a lot of small companies out of Pune and Bangalore are heralding the new Indian product renaissance. And m2m is one such area where this renaissance can dramatically transform. So those were the three perspectives I wanted to share. Business case, use case, new business models, and the new Indian product renaissance. Thank you.
Yeah. Professor Ranjan.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a little brief about TIFAC, my organization. TIFAC is a technology think tank. It was set up more than 25 years back. Just a few days back, we celebrated our 27th Foundation Day this Monday. We have been looking at technology ahead of time, 20 years, 25 years ahead of time, and trying to see how it can benefit country in various ways. And one of the work we had done was India Technology Vision 2020. That was done in 95, 96. Dr. Kalam used to be chairman at that time, before he became president. Right now we are working on India's Technology Vision 2035. So it's beyond the 2020 that we've seen. So because we are not concerned with day-to-day operation issues, which many of the government departments are, so we are looking much ahead of time. In this we are working on 12 sectors, it covering almost everything, starting from energy, water, environment, agriculture, transportation, infrastructure, materials, manufacturing, education, healthcare, ICT, all of them come. Of course, ICT comes in many ways because ICT is enabling technology as well. And then we have taken many mission projects that I will not discuss right now. The other thing that I wanted to mention is my own background, and that has some linkage here because although I'm originally a nuclear fusion scientist, for the last about 11 years, I was working on information and communication technology as a professor in Dhirubhai Ambani Institute of Information and Communication Technology. They were set up in 2001. It's the only university that focused on ICT. Now, the reason I wanted to mention this is that the Indian education system, we are not talking about at all. I have not seen anybody discuss that. Education system is fragmented itself. You have Department of Electronics and Communication. You have Department of Computer Science. And when you look at M2M kind of work, or I bring IoT or wireless sensor network that I was focusing on, I look at network embedded systems. If I fragment the education into these two parts, the students do not get the full picture. So, and the government bodies do not recognize this as a discipline. So in some sense, it's affecting our young engineering workforce to come into this field because they have a fragmented view of the whole system, where either they look at only from some mobile software application one can do, but they're not aware of the electronics of the communication part. The person who is getting trained in ECEs can only do assembly language programming. Okay. So this is a major lacuna that we need to address. We faced a lot of problem in trying to get this to be a recognized degree. We had the AICT come in, they said that this is not in the list of the disciplines that is mentioned. And so we cannot recognize this. We argued that we could just call it IT and you will recognize it and we can teach the same thing. But it will be academic dishonesty. That we are trying to, so we try to teach everybody electronics, computer science, wireless or communication as a core area for first couple of years, and then they specialize in various sectors. So this is a major thing that we need to work together at government thing, and the government departments are also accordingly segregated. And so, you look at things, there's some attempt to try to integrate, but still mindset, we're still, divided into things. So the services that are also being thought of are also segregated in that sense. So this is the important point that I wanted to mention. A second related part of education is that our hands-on learning is very poor. So any of M2M products that you develop is a physical system. Okay. When I was developing wireless sensor network, I worked on India's moon mission, for example. We were trying to set up seismic sensor network on moon. The kind of parameter that we tried to optimize was power, cost, and size, or mass in some cases. Of course, the moon mission, the cost is not really that important, but many other cases it is important. Okay. I work on wildlife, for example, where once I put it on the animal goes away. Okay. And so although many times I will introduce a person who makes animal to animal communicate, send SMS to each other, but actually it was M2M. It was M2M being sent from one animal to another. Each one is keeping track of its own information and then passing it on as it comes in link with. That was to basically track animals. So the second related part is that how do we make sure that the students get hands-on experience in working. And so very important that they need to focus on real-life problems and come up with solutions that we had implemented certain schemes. Slowly they have been also moved out. We tried to bring design as an integrated part of engineering. So in the very second semester of education, we had brought design as a course. In the second year, we had to have a design project, which was a 1 year. My own involvement with disability sector, I'm going to talk a little bit about that, came out of such a student project. And it sort of changed my own life. So from TIFAC, we are taking up a step in this direction. One is that we are working with MSME sector for a long time, and we are taking some major initiative now basically to boost MSME export. In that right now we've identified 4 sectors. One of them is technical textile, ESDM. We have third one is essential oils, is flavors and fragrances, and the fourth one is something very interesting, guar gum, but it doesn't fit into this discussion. But I think it's so interesting that I must mention this. I don't know how many of you have heard of guar phali. I was in Gujarat for a long time, and it was quite popular there. I didn't like it, so I want to buy it. But you would be surprised to know that guar gum powder of that is now the #1 farm export of the country, exceeding rice and cotton. And it's happened in 2 years. And why it has happened in 2 years? Because shale gas that has been found in huge quantity in the US, for that exploration, they need this guar gum powder. So because of that, suddenly it has jumped from 3,000 crores to some 21,000 crore in 2 years. You can imagine the kind. So we are taking up this as an area where to sustain that kind of thing, what we need to do. It's not really related to this, but I thought just as a general knowledge, it's important to know. But when I look at ESDM, for example, of course, a lot of money is being spent. But when I looked at this, is it really, can I acquire one technology which is going to change that whole game? It's not. It is the design capability of our young engineers, small groups, that has to come in. And that's, many aspects of that are involved, starting from culture at home. We don't value dignity of labor. So the person who is affected, suppose I need to clean my house every day, and I have the intellectual capability, I'll come out with a solution which will optimize that, make it more efficient. This is what happens in the Western world. What we do, we segregate. The physical labor goes to the person who does not have the intellectual capability to optimize that. So the same broom will be used over and over 100 years, 200 years, 500 years. The person who have that ability are isolated from that. As parents, we segregate children saying this is not your job or that is not your job. This has led to the fact that the hardware is being completely ignored in education system. Even the electronics courses are teaching simulation-based labs. They don't touch physical systems because it's easy for them to have one computer and do all the lab. Now this is leading to the fact that whatever simulation you do doesn't get into your head. I'm personally a modeling simulation expert. My PhD was in that. But I realized that unless you can work with hand, work with the real system, simulation will not lead. Simulation, of course, is important, but you cannot isolate that. So this is another important part of education system that we need to worry about. Within TIFAC, we are doing 2 things. One is that we are starting an internship program for students to go into MSME sector. Normally students like to go into big names. We want to avoid that. We want to incentivize so that we give some scholarships so that students look into smaller industries where they can see problems at hand and come up with a solution, and we'll further support them through BTech final year project and entrepreneurship and so on. So that we can, and to support that, we are trying to see if we can develop invention labs or innovation labs within the education system so students can work with hands using some of the modern techniques like 3D printing or MIT Fab Lab kind of concept. So the students can convert their ideas into working physical prototype very easily, otherwise they're not able to do that. So this is another thing that I wanted. These are all related from education, but the key to any of the systems, whether it's M2M, whether IoT, whatever you call it, lies in education. Related thing that, since I got involved with disability and old age issues, through one of these student projects, it changed my life. But I realized that this is something that we keep ignoring all the time. One of the things that I started working with, the first one was where a person who does not have finger movement capability to press remote control button, all the solutions fail. So we started with a simple project where we said that we look at gesture, hand gesture. Person wants to operate a TV, he or she cannot press the remote control button. How does the person operate TV? So we said, okay, let the person use gestures so that, you do hand like this, the TV channel goes up, TV channel goes down, volume goes up. With the use of MEMS-based sensors today, it's very cheap, very small, you can integrate, put wireless with that, and connect to things. So we made sure that the user does not have changed anything on TV side. Whatever is there, the intelligence on the device side, because changing a TV is going to be extremely expensive. It will not affordable for Indian community. So otherwise, if I go to US or somewhere else, the X10-based solutions or some interface, you buy that and then your thing will link that. We cannot afford it. We have to work with whatever system is there. So if infrared-based remote are there, I have to duplicate that based on whatever thing. And then from there, I got involved when I started to give the, then from TV, then I said, okay, why not other things? Light, fan, computer, air conditioner, music system, whatever you have, you should be able to operate with a single device. And then when we started giving it to users, there are people who did not have hand, who did not have hand movement, did not have voice. They said, what can you do first? So then I said, okay, let me make sure that it does not matter the person, whatever ability of the person. Let's focus on the ability of the person rather than disability of the person. So we used voice, we used head movement, we used, if nothing else, facial expressions, eye blinks, thoughts, muscle movement. So we have used brain-computer interface, we have used EM sensors. We made sure that we have technology available to make any person communicate, any person control environment around them, and also more importantly, to be able to get a livelihood. Because economic, so we made sure that they can operate a drill, operate. Sorry, this is going up. So once we are able to connect machine to machine, it's very important that we can get them jobs, we can make them self-dependent. So this is another thing that we need to make sure that the systems we have, the voting was being talked about. And so I have an integrated plan where not only voting, the financial transaction also should be possible, that input can be taken from user in a variety of ways. If I look at old age today, the India's population is growing, I think it's probably going to more than 200 millions, which is much larger than many of the countries that we have. And when you look at our systems, we simply do not look at the abilities of persons with old age or disability that we need to worry about. A couple of other points that I wanted to mention. There was talk about rural areas, and as was mentioned that various departments work in silos. One of the things that we are looking at is huge migration from rural to urban. This is leading to pressure on the urban segment. Same water, if you look at as an urban requirement, it is coming from rural areas. We're transporting that water from rural, bringing it, and the per capita consumption is much higher. So what we are doing is that we are taking away resources from rural area, bringing into, we are spending resources, money, everything on that, and then trying to concentrate people. And life of citizens, by and large in the cities, no better than those in rural areas, especially look at people who are underprivileged. So how to reverse this migration, change it back from urban to rural? And I went to US first time to do my PhD, and I saw that my supervisor was living much far away in rural area because they could move easily between the university and that, and they prefer to stay a little away from the city. So one of the things that we're looking at, the technology that is coming up is 3D printers. Okay. Just on our foundation day, we had an exhibition organized on 3D printers. So just like the IT revolution, the 3D printing is bringing manufacturing capability in homes and isolated. It's a distributed manufacturing, custom manufacturing that can be done. So we are working on how to take advantage of this in the MSME sector especially. One of the thoughts that I have, and I will share with you, because again, as I said, that none of these can happen without participation of various bodies, including. So if I want to do a custom manufacturing, let's say that I have this particular glass, and each one likes to have unique set of glass. I want a dozen glasses of a unique kind that I can customize on web, and the STL design file is produced. Through the ICT link that was being talked about, it goes to a person in the village who is operating a 3D printer. The raw material logistics is there so that the raw material can move into the village. The person simply has to take the design, download it into system, it run for 10 hours, 12 hours, produce 12 glasses, and there's a logistics back from there so that it can be dispatched to the customer. Okay. Now, in such cases, we don't need to have a large industry with a lot of land requirement, power requirement, water requirement, and huge thing. We can distribute manufacturing system across villages, which will lead to value addition and livelihood opportunity, and then creation of ICT infrastructure, creation of energy. You don't need too much energy. In many cases, you can even use solar cell-based systems. But of course, ICT infrastructure, the logistics will be needed. In fact, we have been looking at Amazon's, I don't know, some of you are following, these quadcopters are there, which are flying packets from one place to another thing. In this context, the person in rural area may not have the road infrastructure. Can we use those quadcopters to take it from the home and pick it and bring it to a central location close by from where the logistics chain will operate? So it's possible to combine with certain thoughts ahead of time and make sure that such technology can reverse the urban migration, can bring better quality of life to the. So this is one thing where I just want to show that the number of things have to come together. Okay, just last point. Other thing that we just had an Indo-Canada workshop on intelligent transportation system that we were hosting. And one of the things that we realized was that the solutions for Canada are not the same solutions that for India. And since we have been lagging behind, we have the opportunity where a lot of services of intelligent transport systems have now come onto mobile phones and so on. So we don't need to put a lot of electronics into vehicles for doing that. But one of the things that I wanted to mention here is that we have had a license plate being standardized. It's run into problems of various kinds. Still, countries waiting for that. There's an opportunity. There's a window of opportunity here. If we can move to the next generation of active RFID-based system, it will set the base for intelligent transport system. We can have a vehicle identification system which will be much better. It will fit in much better into the thing. But can government organizations and industry work together and make sure it's possible? From TIFAC, we're trying to start some initiative. Hopefully, some of you will join together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ranjan. And I think I'll invite Professor Jagan to give his insights.
I'll be brief. But I absolutely admire what Mr. Ranjan has just talked about, because this is pretty much what is the need of the hour, which is a kind of, we failed to institute that scientific temper into all Indians. Our education system didn't manage to do that. But what you're talking about is the scientific temper, getting into daily innovation, real-time innovation on everything. And that is certainly the need of the hour. I think I also want to echo two things. I'll reflect on two things. One, what Mr. Sitharaman mentioned about at the core of all of this is the human being, and I think that needs to be really actively followed as an important foundation for what we talk about. And what Mr. Prabhu has actually demonstrated, which is that the Indian government as in many sectors, tends to be actually one of the pioneering governments in the world. It picks up ideas very well, very quickly, and somehow we tend to scale it up to a point, and then we tend to lose the energy of that initiative. And that's one of the enigmas that an institute like ourselves, which is also a think tank, assisting the Ministry of Urban Development, is addressing, which is how do we integrate and how do we create what Mr. Ranjan was talking about, a constant cycle of innovation into the systems. This proves to be one of the big hurdles, because if a system gets dated, it becomes, the obsolescence of a system is a real big problem, and that can happen very fast. However, let me just follow through my notes which I've made. I think to our institute, which has just started a kind of smart city program, we're beginning to do that. The ministry is thinking very seriously about smart cities, because we have some 4,000 official cities and 4,000 more unofficial census towns to deal with. So 8,000 cities, which will only really get dealt with if we use ICT technology at some fundamental level, because the speed with which we need to move is only going to be possible through technology. Analog methods, linear methods of thinking about problems are not going to yield the results that we require. The cities are growing, migration is happening at a pace which all of us know very well. We all see it every day. So we need a constant cycle of innovation and application of technologies to help us to deal with this problem. However, at the same time, I think we need to move out of the cycle of, I would say, the cycle of simply informing each other about what is possible, because I believe that's, Google tells us very quickly what is possible in the world, and we have organizations in the country that are repositories of knowledge. What seems to be the need of the hour is how to integrate all of this knowledge into the kinds of integrated knowledge sets that, or for want of a better term, that are required for, at least in my sector, the urban sector. I had the good fortune of visiting the Smart City Expo in Barcelona in November. It was a revelation. What you realize is, at one fundamental level, our thinking is nowhere behind any other country in the world. Every country in the world is struggling to make smart cities. Everyone is only making small initiatives at a fundamental level. People are still talking about, San Francisco is talking about eco-districts. They're starting small. They can only start small. Google is embedding a high-speed network in Kansas City. That's a pilot. So, we are nowhere behind in terms of the global setup. But as Mr. Prabhu pointed out, we seem to be ranked very low. And one of the big questions in my mind is, what are the indicators by which we are actually ranking this e-governance achievements? Because this is one of the ways in which we have caught up with the rest of the world, which is to set up e-governance platforms. And the National Urban Renewal Mission did mainstream the whole need for e-governance platforms. They have tended to be disclosure platforms rather than interactive participatory decision-making platforms, which is really the future of e-governance. But nevertheless, we've achieved quite an astonishing amount given the conditions of working in India. One of the innovations that was listed for a Smart City Prize in Barcelona was very interesting. It fascinates me particularly because I'm an architect. It was a company called City Zenith. City Zenith produces or offers a technology which they call 5D cities. They produce 3D simulations of cities, and they embed. It's a GIS-based model, and it can be integrated right down to building information modeling. But at the upper end, what it does is it gives you a 3D model of your city in which you can embed data of any kind, whether it's energy performance data or it's traffic data, you name it. If the unique identity does become a reality in all our lives, it will embed the precise position of every citizen in that. Of course, there are ominous aspects to this, and M2M has an ominous aspect. If anyone's, to again refer to a movie, if you've seen Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2 or 3 or whatever, there is something ominous about M2M. Nevertheless, it is a necessity for the future. The NUIS, the National Urban Information System, is unfortunately not moving at the pace it needs to. I believe they've managed to create digital mappings of some 30 plus cities, nowhere near what is the requirement of our country. But what a company like Citizenth is posing as a possibility for us is to have not a 2D kind of dashboard that IBM is selling, which is great. It's a great, it's a wonderful thing, but the technology now has moved way beyond that. It's way beyond that, and imagine possibly, a government being able to monitor its cities in 3 dimensions, which really matters when you're dealing with cities. 2 dimensions just don't capture the kind of complexity of information that we require. At the Smart City Expo, of course, we saw technologies, we talked about applications, we saw cities around the world talking about embedding data in their models, real-time data harnessing, crowdsourcing of applications. Cities are creating, Helsinki is creating a wonderful ecosystem where citizens are, and students and school students are producing applications which ride on management platforms for the city. It's astounding what is out there, and we all know that it's out there. Why doesn't it actually get embedded in India is the enigma that our institute is trying to help the ministry to understand. What are the roadblocks? What are the barriers? How to sensorize a whole city? In an Indian situation, for instance, if you take a city like Delhi, sensors are wonderful things. They're available off the shelf. There are cheap and expensive sensors available. All of this is available. But how do you do it? How do you roll out a platform which is connected to sensors, which pick up the sufficient amount of information? And this is the kind of question we would like to collaborate with organizations like TIFAC to understand these questions, really. How do you achieve the sufficient scale that makes it not just a supply-side intervention where you bung in some stuff as a pilot, but it just doesn't actually harness the kind of demand there is in the market. 50% of our cities, at least 50% is residences. Look at the level of automation in a residence. Close to zero, I would imagine. Why don't people in their homes actually adopt automation? I'm really happy to hear that you have worked with problems of the disabled and the elderly. One of the great fears that the elderly have is to actually go and open the door when somebody rings the bell. However, the only product in the market available is a little thing that you need to look through. The elderly are not able to look through it. Sometimes it's a height. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's a height issue. Sometimes it's simply, the ocular performance of an elderly person is not anywhere close to what that manufacturer seems to have gauged. So why are we not able to produce solutions by which a camera can help them? Perhaps can sensitize them, can give them a profile. Tomorrow, if that, possibly a hostile visitor to the door has a unique ID, they might get a profile of who's actually come to their door. Why are we not able to scale this up is the big question. And the Planning Commission of India is also asking these questions. Mr. Arun Maira is a big champion of innovation, but he's saying, why are we not achieving scale? Just a few other points. Some of the questions and some threats that we do see. Data reliability is a big issue. When you do create an ICT platform, but what's the reliability of the data that's riding on that platform is a big question. And how do we solve this problem, especially when you have M2M technologies and you're networking them, you're picking up data from different kinds of sources, the metrics are different, the level of sort of credibility, so to speak, of that data, plus legal liability attached to data. That's the big question that e-governance has thrown up. How much can you rely on data sets? And because if you're working with the government, you need to have the reliability of data, because that can land up in court and that data can be questioned. So how do you deal with the liabilities attached to the data that gets harnessed from M2M networks? There's also an interesting other aspect which came up in a recent discussion I had with one of the behemoths in the ICT and smart city governance space, and they were saying, we've created a platform and we can monitor central schemes sitting in Delhi. We'll give you a dashboard. Fantastic. The realities on the grounds are such that if there is too much transparency, that can lead to very ominous outcomes. A junior engineer you're monitoring his performance. He's implementing a project on ground. He gets a call from his boss who tells him not to actually stand at the site that he's managing, but to go to another site. Your transparent monitoring platform is going to hold that guy responsible for not being at a point in space at a particular time. He may lose his job, he may lose his wages, he may be penalized in other ways. The poor man is not actually responsible for not being there, but your platform is going to pick him up as, hey, he's not there. That dot is not showing on the map. So what is too much transparency is also a big question, or what is the level of transparency that our society and our system today can actually handle, because that is a very crucial question, and perhaps it is one of the barriers to the rollout of a lot of these systems, because technology is a very transparency creating thing in our world. Just one or two other points. Our conversations are tending to become more and more sales and marketing focused, which it doesn't need to be, because the ecosystem and the industry is big enough to support all players. It needs to be, and I think Mr. Prabhu had a slide where he talked about advisory level groups, people who do the sort of top end thinking about the systems that we are rolling out. That is a very important thing, and I think initiatives like what M2M Wire has set up, these need to become more and more the kinds of discussion formats where we iron out the problems and debug the thinking on this. And just one of the last points I'd like to make is that we find it very fascinating that the Bombay train system in a pre-ICT technology era was delivering train services on time to millions of residents of Bombay for a long time. So obviously the mantra is not just the technology. It is about intelligence actually coming into every kind of thinking of every operation and every system, which doesn't necessarily have to rest on the use of technology. It needs to rest on a level of intelligence. So we need to match what we are doing in terms of talking about technology with what we are able to achieve in terms of the kinds of innovation that Mr. Ranjan talked about, the scientific temper. Are we actually analyzing our processes well enough? And so the final point that I'd like to make is that we've got to achieve a way in which all of these systems and networks that we're installing, the e-Bharat that we are creating, can be updated in real time, can be actually improved in real time, and possibly through participation of the consumers themselves. Only then I believe the demand can be tapped, because we're still at a stage of really throwing a lot of stuff at the human beings, the Indian public. They're not adopting it, so our pilots need to become actually daily life. That's obviously, it's known in the industry. It's the outcomes. The focus in almost all the sessions I managed to attend in that 3-day Congress was entirely about outcomes. It was sort of like, what the Americans say, it's a no-brainer that the technologies are there. Are we applying them?
No, I beg to slightly differ from you. I agree the outcome is the final thing, but technology being an enabler, we need to use it properly, and we need to know what technology to use where. That is the basic.
I agree.
That's where the confusion and all the dichotomy is. Everybody's trying to sell what he has in his pocket. You talked about IBMs and all these. I understand. I face them. I always challenge their offerings. That okay, you're trying to sell this, but do we really need this in this way? We need a different flavor. Can you offer it? So each city will be a separate system of systems. So a little unique, but still at the ground level, it's still the same.
You're absolutely right. In fact, that was, I forgot to mention just how important that point is, the customization.
Yeah.
The fact that every city has its own solution and its own use of the smart city.
The basic architecture will remain same, but the overall...
definition of smart city?
There is no single definition per se, but
I'll tell you, the way we as technocrats, as a design guy, the way we look at it is a system of systems. Like an airplane. It has to take care, it's a hotel in itself, it's a ship. You talk about...
Yeah, but it could be a city of a lot of smart people.
Yeah.
No, so there is...
Smart city or not? Bangalore is smart city or not? Can you tell?
By the way...
Sir, with all due respects, I wouldn't ask that question.
As of today...
but sometimes definitions are not necessary. It is a concept.
Yeah.
It is not necessarily something we need to define in 2 lines.
And yeah.
One comment, just a few days back there was another M2M meeting, and the gift city which is being built in Gandhinagar, they're given full detail of that.
Okay.
Don't have to go to Barcelona, actually you can see what they're doing. It was very interesting if they can achieve what they were claiming.
Okay, that's and this, Dr. Ranjan, talking about your point, I think you touched a very raw nerve, which is which I always talk in all the platforms. Here I did not find relevance, so I did not touch it. But the education system and this hardware and the wireless sensor, these are the things. Since you mentioned Mr. Arun Mehra, I had a discussion with him on this innovation part. I said, what is happening in India? I told him, look, the cream of the nation goes to IITs at the school level, okay? And what happens to them? By the time they reach 3rd, 4th year, they apply for CAT. Whoever gets selected, they go to IIMs. And after that, they join such and such multinational banks or finance companies and all that. So what exactly is happening to India is the intellect, the top cream of the intellect of this thing are not being used, being able to be used as engineers. So we have lost engineers. We got clerks, we got everything, managers. We don't have engineers. So we need to focus back on making our engineers true hardcore engineers, and that's what hands-on and all those things and hardware understanding. For IoT, sensor networks are the last mile connectivity, and the optimized sensors are the key thing. Unless we are able to design that and customize it as per the use case and the application that we are talking, which managed service we are talking about, well, this will not happen. And for that, we need a good, very conducive education system.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think it needs a lot of discussion.
I think
it is a very short time.
I know.
Yes,
sorry.
No, just a short comment on that. I'd like to highlight again what I said about data. Great. I mean, it's wonderful to have sensor systems everywhere. We're not even using the data that comes off, already. Are we even harnessing the data that is collected at every pollution control post in the city?
No.
Are we even looking at that data and what it tells us about our automobiles? The Center for Science and Environment brought out a very interesting study. It said that everybody's baying for blood about cars. It's the two-wheelers. The real pollution is coming out of these two-wheelers. We have actually, Hamara Bajaj to blame rather than, possibly. I mean, it's an argument, but certainly a very,
valid point. Yeah. No, but you're right. See, big data is still a confusion. We have started throwing data into that, collecting data, but no data analytics, no dashboard, proper dashboard. But unless we have data analytics in place, all this data and IoT would not.
But the specialization doesn't help us do that. I think the problem is the societies that have adopted do-it-yourself ethos in their culture, all right, whether it's Japan or it's the UK or whatever, the knowledge societies. UK produces most of its GDP out of knowledge industries. These are the kinds of societies that are able to tackle this and use it much better. So it's not about specialization, it's about everybody in their homes.
I'll tell you.
I think we are slightly diverting from the topic. Okay. Basically we are talking about the M2M challenges and those areas. Sorry. So basically we should remain focused.
Sure.
Maybe I think one more gentleman has a question.
There is one question for Professor Bhaskar regarding the importance of education, because when we are saying a new subject or new technology, the education is the most important aspect so that the ecosystem can be developed in a well-balanced manner. For example, there are a lot of developments happening through proprietary technologies by many big companies throughout the world. What we actually observe is that we are the purchaser of the products, but the real technological development and real technological education has to percolate to our engineering students, science students, so that we can own the technology. So
yeah, I think you made a very valid point, but it's still actually going out of focus right now. So I think I'll probably ask the gentleman. Yeah. And we'll have a lot of time during lunch hour and the later on sessions, so we can actually talk. Yeah.
No, I think keeping the paucity of the time, even I had a question on smart city, but let's do it during the break. I think it's a M2M conference, so let's focus on the M2M conference perspective. But I have two questions which I can ask offline, maybe later on, but I can put the question in front of the audience. The one question is to Shri Prabhuji. I mean, I agree that it's not only smart city, we have to do smart rural as well. So both project has to run parallel. Do you have any plans, or could you put some highlights that any plans to connect the government schools in the villages, like the way you have connected the universities of the National Knowledge Network? Because that is very important. And then on top of it, educating the village local entrepreneur. Because having the CSC failed because we could not capitalize that hardware or the infrastructure. So that is one question. The second question is to Professor Jagan. If I do a Google, I see Kochi as a smart city. And Levasa claims, I'm the smart city, though it is not a smart city, but it's a business proposal. So probably, as you are participating in the think tank, I think it's important that India should have its definition of a smart city, which will vary from city to city, and which could be benchmarked in debates and discussions, and we follow that while we talk about smart city implementation in this country. Thank you.
Can I answer? Okay. Coming to the first question, in the NOFN pilots, we have implemented in 3 locations, in Paravada near Visakhapatnam, and near Ajmer in Rajasthan, and in Panisagar in Tripura. The village schools have been given broadband connectivity, and they have been given virtual classroom, and they are not only able to, the students and the teachers are not only able to access the internet, but they are also able to see virtual classroom by a teacher in a remote city. So that is the concept, and there are a lot of material available on tele-education, mobile education from KG to PG, because the teachers are a great scarcity in the villages. And if we can bring the quality teaching from cities to villages through this means, that will be a great achievement. That's the direction in which we are going.
Yeah, so I think I agree with some of the things that we should have benchmark parameters for both smart cities and smart villages before we can call some city a smart city or some village as a smart village. And that's something that probably also the policy makers have to probably work on, how to benchmark a city or a village to a smart geographic area for that matter. So I'll try to summarize the discussion, as most of the time, like what we discussed, Mr. Prabhu discussed about a lot of initiatives and the vision 2020 that eBharat has. And then Derek has talked about the potential that Indian companies, especially the MSME sector, actually poses, not only to the Indian market, but to the international market. Then about Professor Ranjan, who talked about the ICT, the education, and the various initiative at TFAC that he is actually involved in, especially in the disabled segment. And then Professor Jagan, who talked about the urban affair system. So basically, as far as we talked about the challenges, so some of the challenges that I could think of is infrastructure, the security, the standard and compliance, the reliability of the data, the legality of the data sets that Professor Jagan has pointed out, and some of the things that I see that technology has already answered. For the infrastructure, from the point of view of the SIM cards, so there are MIM cards which are called M2M cards, or embedded SIM cards which have been, ITU has recommended in I think in the December 2013 itself, where the embedded SIM card can be programmed by a particular operator. So if you don't like an operator, you want to switch to a different one, you can actually do that. And those are the things which are already like ITU, the international bodies are working on, and I think we have a lot to learn from them before we actually reflect back to them. From the security point of view, I think there's still a lot of questions which I think we'll have in the next session, which is on the standards. We can talk about it on that. And then one of the challenge, reliability and the legality is something that we still have to go a long way before we talk about these things. And from the Daniel's perspective, I think the market's still pretty fractured, fragmented, and how to address that is again is a challenge. And I think a lot of our delegates have a lot to contribute to this discussion, and it can go on for a long time. And I